You can't hear me? Turn on your sound.
Okay, we're live. This is Keith Kelsch with How to Build Your Own Home every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Can you hear me, everybody? Can you hear me,
Yep,
honey?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Well, turn
That's
on
okay.
your sound.
I'll continue on. Great. This is I have a lot of questions from a lot of students that have printed up. I even have some emails that I did not print up. So we're going to hurry and jump to those real quick because I promised people, since if they can't be to live chat, they can go to howtobuildyourownhome.com and you can contact the instructor. And through that contact the instructor, you can actually leave a message and that comes directly to me. So she's double checking my mic. There we are. Okay. Thanks, honey. So I want to get to these real quick. That way during the week, they can actually come to these live chats and find their their question answered pretty quickly. And then they won't have to stick around for too long. So it's kind of a promise I made. Let's take this first question here. This is from Jacob for a live stream question. First, you and your family are incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. Background, we're building land in eastern Tennessee on the edge of the Appalachian Mountains. That's a great, wonderful place. If I wasn't living in the Rockies, I'd probably live in the Appalachians. The soil is a red clay. We identify with that. Soil listed as DED2, which is silty loam. There is a driveway cut in and cleared area, and we are going to build an RV pad to stay in while we build our home. The driveway will be approximately 500 feet long, which we're going to talk about, and gains approximately 30-40 feet in elevation. So if you can imagine that, with part of it being reasonably steep. Question, what are your thoughts, recommendations for building a gravel driveway on clay soil with a hill? Currently, we're planning to compact the soil, it goes through some details on that. And then he has a second question. The driveway will run on the side of the hill, and thus the slope from the right to the left will drive on it. Should we put in a drainage ditch on the uphill side, or just let it flow naturally across the driveway first? I'm going to try to paint a picture for you to help you understand. 500 feet long, that's a football field plus 200 feet. So if you can imagine that, that's a long drive. Now, if you're in Tennessee in the eastern or western side of the Appalachians, you're probably going to get some snow. So you got to factor all those weather factors in. Now, I'm just going to keep a gravel driveway really, really simple. There's two ways to approach a gravel drive, especially if you get a lot of moisture on it. You can either build your drive so it's flat, but somewhat tilted like that. That way, all the water sheets off like that. Or you build it as a hump like that, and it drains on both sides. The problem with a hump is that if you're going a long distance, like 500 plus feet, you eventually need to put some culverts underneath the road. Otherwise, that water that's going to run on both sides of the road, it's going to create a deep rut, and those ruts are going to get deeper and deeper. So I've recently built a home where we actually had the drive slightly tilted, so the water just sheets right off the road that way. Mainly because we were on a hill like this client is. We do have some incline, and the possibility of fast runoff was also a factor, and I didn't want to have deep ruts affecting that road. So that might be the best way to approach it. Talk with an excavator. They will know what I'm talking about when you use the word, should we sheet off all at once, or should we create drainage on the side of the road? Talk to them with both of those options, and they'll understand you. Now, the last thing to think about is if that road is on the north side and it's not going to melt fast enough, that is also a factor. If I was building on the north or building on the southern slope, I would build my roads differently. If I'm on the northern side, I'm going to want to plow the road and get all the snow to the side and have it drain to the sides. I don't want it on the road. The one I just built, it's all south facing. The sun hits it pretty quick and it dries off pretty quick. So we're going to have it sheet off. Does that make sense? I'm trying to paint a picture to give you the best approach to that. But the last thing I'd keep in mind is when you do build a road and it's going to be a gravel road, it's going to get damaged. You're going to have big, heavy equipment come up there. You're going to have cement trucks. You're going to have big forklifts. Get a nice road-based compaction there, and it's going to start pushing your aggregate down. When you finally get a good aggregate on there, your final aggregate needs to be jagged. It can't be nice and polished and round, because if it's polished and round, it's not going to lock into each other, and you're not going to have a solid base. So don't put polished round. My wife has a wonderful story on polished rock. You don't want to put polished rock on your drive. Little pebbles and little pea gravel. It needs to be jagged, and it's going to lock in a lot better for you. So again, that's for Jacob. I hope I answered that question real quickly. Let's take one more. I got a couple here because I know I want to get some students here. This is from Jeff, and he says, hello, Keith and family. He says, are invaluable as a new GC license in the state of Georgia. My first project was to build my own home. I purchased 6 acres back in 2019. I have plans. I had all permits expired now, which shouldn't be a problem. You should be able to extend those and go back in and get an extension. I cleared the road and home site and have temp power and water on site. I am also a veteran with the option to use a VA construction to permeate a construction to perm loan. He said permeate loan, but it's a perm loan. Either way, how do I go about this project in order to get credit for my first build? I heard you tell your friend to get approval from the bank as a builder, but I'm not following what to do next. Please advise. Since you're a licensed GC in the state of Georgia, you're a licensed GC. You're getting a loan for, even if it's a personal property, you still have a licensed contractor license. They should not reject you at all. Go to the bank, see what you qualify for. And when it comes down to that time when they need a GC, you give them the license of the GC, and you will need to show proof of insurance. So, but you can deal with that a little bit later, but see what you qualify for. Go to the bank and then tell them that you should be able to qualify for a VA loan. Again, the bank is only going to ask for a GC license. They're not going to ask who is your license, who is your GC. They're just going to ask for a GC. Same with the VA. A lot of those government programs like it if the build is under a licensed general contractor, especially if the USDA is involved. So check with them on that, but go to the bank, find out what you qualify for, or go right to the VA loan center and find out. I think it's a direct loan if I'm correct, or it might be through a bank. I've not done a VA loan. It's been in fact, I don't think I've ever done a VA loan. Most of mine have been USDA loans. So go to the bank or go to the VA and find out what you qualify for and start there. Okay.
I'm doing 2 homes.
I can't hear you.
I'm doing 2 homes right now with VA. They're brand new builds with
If I can't hear you, the students can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me? I
still can't hear you.
I think I can hear it. Sound is good.
Nope.
It's just you. Probably. Well.
Oh, they say they can hear you, but I can't hear you. So go ahead. Ignore me.
I'm doing 2 VAs right now on a new build on a mass production builder. And they're not getting a construction loan, but all the different kind of lenders can do it. So a bank can do it and a lender can do it. So same with construction, only certain banks will do the construction loan. VA just gives you a better rate, and it also has a 0 down option. So that's why you want to do VA, but you should be able to do VA and hopefully have that same benefits with construction loan. I'm going to go check on Keith again.
Okay, I got one more question here I want to get to. Says this is from Josh, and he says, been watching your videos for a long time, thus the professional email. He does have a professional email here, and it's W something 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 builder. So he's using that. It's really, really great. He said, I wanted you to know what your thought on high efficiency options about beaten path. Do you support or advise with people who want to build with extra thick exterior walls with double stud or other options? Maybe you've covered this, but I haven't found a video or you talked about it. So what he's talking about is kind of the overkill, and you have a stud wall here, and then you've got a thermal break, maybe an air gap, and you put another stud wall there, and you put insulation in them and do all that kind of stuff. I don't recommend that. I would rather put money where it really matters, on the outside of the home. I don't like taking up square footage on the inside of the home with the idea that you're building a more efficient home. So imagine building a regular stick frame wall, and it could be a 2x6 wall, it could be a 2x8 wall, although I don't recommend a 2x8 wall necessarily. A 2x8 wall unmute. There we are. Now people can hear me. Are good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Don't know where I ended with that story, but don't put money into costly framing. Put money into more efficient insulation on the outside of the wall. This is what Josh, he was asking. He was thinking about, people watch a lot of videos that are out there, and they see people build homes with two studded walls, and they create a thermal break inside the walls, and they think that's a wonderful, high efficient home. But there's a point of no return, meaning that I've seen a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm going to build an rammed earth home, and I'm going to do a rammed earth home that's 12 inches thick. When somebody else says, I'm going to do a home that's 18 inches thick. And there comes a point where there's no return on the value that you expend to do that. How many of you have been in a cave before? You've been in a cave, and by the time you get 5, 10, 15 feet into the cave, you have a constant cool temperature, right? What if we add another mountain on top of that cave? It's still not going to change the constant temperature inside that ground. You can go down 8, 9, 10 feet. You're going to have a constant temperature of roughly 68 degrees or thereabout. Why add another 20 feet on top of that? It's not going to change. And that's the problem with a lot of thinking out there, is that they think more is better when it's not better. You just want more efficiency given the technology you're currently using. So right now, the new code is to add a thermal blanket of insulation on the outside of the home. A lot of jurisdictions are adopting it. With that adoption will come more builders using it, and more of us learning how to do that. That thermal blanket, complete insulation on the outside with something like this. I have this on my desk as an example. Something like that. That's rigid insulation. Easy to apply. It's very, very rigid. And you screw that to the outside of the home. You have a complete blanket minus the windows. And then you have your frame structure after that. That is a better use of money than a full-on second studded wall. And I would recommend something like that. And that's where the code is going. You can use polyiso foam. You can use mineral wool. There's other products that are a combination of sheeting material and insulation. There are a lot of stuff's coming out regarding that. But I would put more money on the outside of the home and not a double wall. Hope that answers your question. So those are the questions I got.
Okay.
If I have time, I'll go to my email. Some came in this morning, but I'll probably respond to those next week. So let's go ahead and take some questions here, if there's someone. Hello, Keith and Melissa. Is there any advantage in insulating a garage ceiling and exterior garage walls in Florida? Thanks for everything you do. Yeah, there's some advantages. Sound is one of them. Mineral wool is a far better sound quality. I just met some clients last week, and they build some very high-end homes. And one of the big issues they have is wind making a sound against the home coming out of the canyon. And they were using 1 inch of polyiso foam, which is about half the thickness of this. And polyiso foam is a rigid product, and it doesn't dampen sound very well. So I showed them a product like this, but it's called Fire and Sound Tech. And that actually has a much better approach at deadening sound. And they were so impressed with that. They said, we want you to build some homes out there, because nobody else is using that product, like I said, to quiet the home. So that's one factor. The other factor is you would have a rain screen. So if you had this here is actually called rain screen, believe it or not. You have paper here, and you put this on the outside of the paper of your sheeting product, and that actually acts as a rain screen so that it breathes. It's vapor permeable, so it allows the home to breathe when it gets really damp with a heavy rainstorm. That product is mold proof because it's mineral wool, and as a result, the whole home can breathe. So sound deadening. It's a rain screen to keep water away from the rigid frame structure on the inside. And on top of that, you're probably going to get about R6.3 with 2 inches additional R value on the home. And to believe it or not, if a 2x4 hit a home from a hurricane, that's going to actually help stop a lot of that too. I could go on. There's a lot of stories regarding hurricane strength with additional rigidity of the home. So yeah, a lot of pluses with regard to insulating the garage, and especially between the main living and the garage. That has to be insulated for sure, because that's part of your conditioned space inside the home. And most insulators aren't going to charge you a fortune for that, because they're there. Net and blow insulation would be just fine for that. But I've never built a home where I do not insulate the garage. A lot of production builders don't insulate the garage. They'll get away with that, especially in the South. Texas, Florida, a lot of places like that, where it's not much of an issue on utility usage. But the further you go north, it's a really big issue. So especially if you have your heater and water heater in the garage, that gets frozen, and you have to insulate the garage to help ameliorate that problem. But in Florida, sound and rain screen protection are your two best bets for insulating the garage, especially the outside. Okay. I put my glasses on so I can read that one. Good evening. What kind of square foot are you getting per ton of HVAC with modern builds? HVAC techs I am talking to keep giving me the 500 square foot ton rule of thumb. Manual J is saying about 700 to 800 a square foot ton. It depends on the efficiency. There's 85% efficiency up to 95, and even a little bit better than 95% efficiency. And then it's also a matter of how you run your ductwork. So if you run your ductwork and it's inside an attic, and you're like in Texas somewhere, Arizona or Nevada, it gets really, really hot in that attic, around 140 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit inside that attic, and you've got ductwork running through there, and that ductwork is only about that thin. And the first time you turn on the air conditioning, it blows hot air into the home. That's going to drop your efficiency substantially. But if all that ductwork is blanketed inside insulation, and you've got added insulation around that, that's going to help your efficiency quite a bit. And then it depends on how much cubic square feet you're moving of air, not just your square footage of your home. It's the cubic square feet of the actual living space. This is where design really plays a factor. So I've seen families build homes that have 12, 15-foot vaulted ceilings, and they do that in the north. And on top of that, those open living areas are not facing south, so they can't capture sun. My wife and I have an open living area here. During the winter time, if we didn't have the windows where we have them, we live it would be very uncomfortable. We'd have to have the heat on more. But during the winter time, we capture that passive solar as it goes across the sky like this, and the sun dips down lower in the wintertime, and we're capturing all that sunlight during the wintertime. So again, all these things play into it. I have a course at How to Build Your Own Home, and there's a 3-course module that talks about building science, house layout, how to place your house, even talks about passive solar. This would be invaluable for that, because you don't want to rely on HVAC to solve your problem. You want to try to solve problems that the HVAC system doesn't have to accommodate for. So I would strongly take the course, and at least those 3 courses. And then there's some really in-depth checklists to go through a lot of that. As you can tell, I can talk about a lot of issues when it comes to HVAC, because we're talking about building science, we're talking about heating costs, and we're talking about conservation, and all those courses talk about that. Okay. Oh, I gotta put my glasses back on. Hello, do you guys use project management software? And if so, which one do you use?
No.
No, we don't. I heard you that time, honey. We
Okay.
don't. Yeah, I heard you now. That's good. We don't use any project software. And the
Except for
reason
QuickBooks.
Yeah, we use QuickBooks. We just use our own hat. This is a sweaty hat. My daughter and I have a system. We use a system at How to Build Your Own Home. We use our own checklist. We use our own budget. We are really smart with scheduling. Now, if we were running 20 jobs, it'd be a different story, even 14 or 12 jobs. But when jobs are, dispersed properly, it's not so much of a hassle given the system we have. But with owner builders, I wouldn't waste your money. They're going to charge you between $600 and $1,200 a month just to use the software. That's crazy. And I've worked with other builders, and I would spend more time on my phone, literally like this, plugging in where I left, how long I was there, took pictures, this and that. I spend more time doing that than I actually do spending time with subcontractors and talking with them. So don't get hooked into that. Until a software is available for owner builders that's maybe $25 a month, I wouldn't even bother. The system we've created will handle that all for you. And then down the road, if we convert it into an application, there you go. But that's down the road. Okay, I sent my plans to 5 different GCs, but they all came at very different prices. I decided to start the project on my own. Good for you. I'd like to know what those different prices are.
Yeah, that would be cool to see the prices.
Yeah.
And she's halfway done with the foundation. Woohoo! Yay!
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Okay, here we go.
What are your thoughts about the steel frame building? I've seen that a lot lately. I have a really good friend. Her name's Sandra, and she actually is now in that business. It's called cold form steel, and what they'll do is they'll take plans and then they'll actually manufacture the steel, so you don't have to cut anything. Cutting steel is very loud. The decibel on that is pretty insane, and it's super, super loud, and you'll hear it in commercial projects a lot of the time. But cold form steel, if you want, you can reach out through my website, How to Build Your Own Home, and I can give you the contact, and she can help you out because they're servicing people across the country. There's issues with what they call a Faraday cage and whether or not they can handle an EMP or some other magnetic reversal or solar flare, which we had one 3 days ago. Such a massive solar flare that produces earthquakes, and they're now finding the connection of the two. It's pretty amazing. The other thing is that it's a very, very, very good conductor of heat and cold. So if you can have a steel I-beam like that, just as a stud, that's a continuous metal piece like that all the way through. And then you put your drywall, and then you put your stud wall, your sheeting on the outside. But once that cold hits that metal, it will conduct right through. And so until they figure out how to do a thermal break inside there, that's the only thing that is holding me back on that. is I don't see enough efficiency on the because I build in high altitude cold climates. I also build in super 114-degree temperatures during the summer in the desert. So I'm dealing with super hot and I'm dealing with super cold, and it just wouldn't necessarily be amenable to me right now until they figure out how to put a thermal break in there. So it's like a window. Back in the day, in the 70s, you had aluminum windows, no thermal break, and you would touch that frame on that aluminum window. So you could even see the frost that build up around it. Well, over time, they've now figured out how to build windows so there's a break, just like you have a hot pan on a skillet. The handle is wood or the handle is aluminum. It's something else that's not going to conduct a hot temperature from the copper or the cast iron. It won't, conduct it all the way up there and burn your hand. They've got to figure out how to solve that problem. Still, for me anyway.
Okay. Just a comment from Make Triathlon Great Again. Anyway, so I have been my own GC and have under contract the foundation, electricity, plumbing, and framing, saving lots of money.
Saving a lot of money.
That's why we started How to Build Your Own Home, so we could help people.
She's probably saving at least $35,000 on the low end, between $35,000 and $70,000. That's what she's saving. Probably even more. I don't know where she's building. Okay. I have a subcontractor asking for 50% deposit. I can't read that. My loan doesn't cover deposits. I'm trying to get him to tell me how much he needs to start the job, but he keeps asking how much I have instead. That's a red flag. He might be asking to make sure you have a loan, but tell him I have a loan with the bank. If he wants to go into the bank can verify that I have a loan for the money. But I'd like to know what subcontractor it is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And in my mind, there's no reason, given today's sophistication with lien right protection that a lot of states have implemented, there's no reason for him to be afraid that he would never get paid, because he has the ability to protect his lien rights. If he's not familiar with that, he's not very sophisticated.
She says it's electrical.
No. Well, I know he has to buy wire, and wire is pretty pricey right now. But I've never had any subcontractor in my career ask for 50% deposit. I'll be honest with you. And when they do, I don't hire them. My framer, he doesn't order the lumber. I order the lumber. Even plumbers, my electricians, they don't ask for that. Mainly because I do have a relationship with them, which I can understand. But I don't know. Here's the risk. Let's say your bid is $40,000 for electrical, 35, 40,000, and they're going to take 20 grand from you. You have no guarantee that that money is going to be applied to your home and he could walk. You have no guarantee. None whatsoever.
That's why the bank doesn't do it.
That's why the banks don't do it. So you either need to have material on the job site. If you sign their contract, that's all they need. They have a signed contract that you're good and due, net 30, when the job's halfway done or when rough-in's done. Once the rough-in's done, you can give them what you want there. But I don't do that. I've never paid anybody 50% up front. And I had a gentleman take over a company, and he was from Texas and he was from another state. I won't mention the state. He was from there, and he started asking for all this upfront money, and he called it mobilization costs and all that. And I wouldn't do it anymore. I got tired of it. You either know me or you don't know me. You either know that I have proof of funds with the bank, or you have a signed contract. If that's not good enough for you, then I don't go there.
And hopefully, Leanne, I hope you got a couple bids, not just one. Yeah. And hopefully two of the others are better.
Yeah. Yeah. You're more in a greater risk situation. I can't tell you how many owner builders I've run into, especially with GCs. They're the worst. they give a GC 40, 50, 60, 80, 120,000 as a down payment to start building a home, and those GCs walk. All right, because you have no teeth in the game at all, because you don't know who they are, and you go to find out who they are, and they don't have any assets. You can't secure any legal rights against you. It's more of a headache for you to go after them than it is for them to come after you. For them, it's easy. They've got a signed contract. If they know their lien rights, they can file a simple lien to get that secure. So if the home is ever sold or transferred or whatever, they're in first position by most lien rights in the country, especially labor. Labor's first, supply houses second, and then other subcontractors typically third. It's in that order. Labor is the first one they recognize in paying people out. This is why laborers don't understand how much power they have. They can, for $1, file a notice of commencement, and then they're pretty much secure. But people aren't sophisticated. They don't know how to do that. And so this is a red, as you can tell, this is kind of a red flag. I wouldn't go there. Find another bid.
Yeah, and if you definitely use referrals. I had a friend that I don't know if I should tell the story, but she didn't use our system. She wanted to build her own house. She thought she could do it on her own, and she ordered her cabinets online from Texas, and she's out 30 grand because that was the deposit. And I'm like, why didn't you just ask me? I have several, but she wanted to do it independently. So don't be afraid. That's why we're here. We're here to help. We don't want you to lose your 30 grand, your 50 grand. We have one client that Keith was talking about. They've lost $200,000 with that GC. Like, we're here. We want to help you as much as we can.
Yeah, just message me like you did message me there, and we'll give you one too. Okay. I'll let you read that one. Any of my glasses are kind of dirty. Okay.
This is JC. Is there a huge difference between the Schluter Curdy system and the traditional shower pan liner plus red guard system? And do you think the upgrade is worth it? It costs a couple thousand more.
That's a really good question. It shouldn't cost a couple thousand more. If you're talking about the full Schluter system, that is the full pan and all that, a good shower installer can build a bladder system, fill it up with the proper insert and stuff like that. It shouldn't cost that much money. The Schluter Curdy is really, it applies pretty easy. It's better than a red guard. I've seen people try to use the red guard and it just doesn't work. Now, I do believe in red guarding the walls, and I've seen that. There's other products as well, not just red guard, and they do that. But I like a full bladder on a shower, and then I have what's called a pan inspection. And the pan inspection means that they're going to put the bladder in. It's going to come up 6-8 inches on the side of the showers. They're going to plug it, and they're going to fill it up with water. And they're going to put a mark over where the water is still. And then they'll come back the next day, and if the water's not dropping all, it's holding water. And most permitting offices are going to ask for a pan inspection. Well, when I have a bladder, a full bladder inspection like that, I never have any problems. I haven't gone full Schluter with the pan per se, but I do use the Schluter on the tile in the outer perimeter of the shower, and also in the walls on bathtubs and the walls in the shower. But there's all kinds of products that Schluter Curdy make. They make for the trim, the metal trim. They make for the underlayment, the roll-on underlayment, all kinds of underlayment for heating. So there's all kinds of products. Some of them I use and some of them I don't use yet. So, but the extra cost the reason why some tile guys like it is because the bottom pan for a Schluter is a foam product. It's super big when they get it, and they just cut it to fit for the shower. They pop it in there, and they don't have to have a perfect smooth surface to put the tile on. They can put the tile right on there. So they're charging you more for a product, which is less labor for them. Does that make sense? So it's kind of and I don't know why those products are so much money. I'm hoping they come down, but get some different bids without the Curdy Schluter products and see what it comes in at, and ask for a full bladder rather than using the Schluter products.
Okay. We have a first timer.
Oh, there's some.
Garnet Houston.
What's your preference on slab versus crawl space? Live in Columbus, South Carolina. The land has a slight grade. Really, really good question. And South Carolina is one of those states where it's like, am I the South or am I the North? And if you're in the North, it kind of changes a little bit. So I don't know how close you are to the coast, because that's going to change
Columbia.
also. Because you've got warm currents coming up from the Gulf all along the coast, which keeps it somewhat mild along that area, especially in South Carolina. I'm more favorable to a stem wall in that particular area, mainly because you've got high humidity, and you might want to be able, I like to be able to remodel my homes if I need to down the line. Stem wall allows for that. The slab on grade is a real painful situation. If the soil's not great, the slab on grade's really hard to nail without any cracks. If you have to rely on a really good subcontractor for the slab on grade and getting it done right and prepping the soil right and all that. And that's more risky. And if you can't find a good subcontractor in the trade for foundation work, but they may handle a 2-foot stem wall just fine with very little frost depth. I'd like to know what your frost depth is, if there is any particular frost depth in that particular, because you're just north of Georgia, if I'm correct.
It's 2.5 hours from Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. That's like in those mild areas where, like in Florida, it's pretty much all slab on grade. A lot of patio homes down there. They don't do stem walls unless they're in a flood area and they need to lift the home. Then it's a different story. So I would just, I would consider probably a stem wall, but I'd like to look at your soils too. That would tell me a lot. But stem walls are nice, mainly because you're on a hill, and that will allow you to do final grade against the home to set your grade just right. A slab on grade is going to be real hard, and you're probably going to have to build retainage wall on the back side of the home because you're going to go into the hill a little bit, and some of the house is going to slope off really fast. So a stem wall, you can control that grade a lot better. So think about that. But keep in mind, if you do a stem wall and there's a garage and a double car garage, the hardest part is getting the elevation exactly right so that when you drive into the garage, you have no steps into the home. So if you can do it right and get your grade just right, that stem wall should allow you to backfill into the garage. So you just pour your slab on the top of that and you really can walk into your home. That's a big thing with me. I just built a home for clients and I put a lot of time, I was talking with my client. I go, what's your favorite part of the build? Because he's been through the process now. And I told him, you want to know what my favorite part of the build is? It's dirt work and framing and all the excavation, because I like to set the home perfectly. If I do it right, I can drive right into a garage and I walk right into the home without any steps. To me, that's a marvel. That's hard to do, but it can be done. Yeah. Most homes are lazy. They don't plan it. They just, just put a couple of steps there, not realizing that that's not fun as you get older. It's not. And so when somebody's paying the money for a home, they want to pay for someone who can site it, set the elevation right, and hit it just right. And I actually lifted that home 4 feet, believe it or not. And I still hit that elevation perfect. I'll do a final video and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I just did the home a couple blocks away and we did a ramp and it was nice and subtle, came up on the driveway, and there's no step into the main living of that home from the drive. I couldn't help it going into the garage, but we did make it so that they just use the front door now. And they love it. I love to think about ease of access into home and all that. So that's your biggest challenge with a stem wall. But a stem wall will allow you to hit elevation better than your slab on grade, especially on a hill. On a flat pad that's ready to be built on, that's a different story. That would be a slab on grade for sure. But given with a slight incline, I'd probably go with the stem wall. Gills County, Tennessee, what do you think about rubble trench? A rubble trench for what? Just drainage? You've got water, a lot of drainage, water issues in Tennessee, especially as you get further east into the foothills there, into the Appalachians. And because of that, what were the floods that we had a couple of years ago? Pretty intense floods that came off the coast and just pulverized the east coast of Tennessee. And it was pretty nasty. You got like 6-7 inches in just a short amount of time. And so given how much green you have, how much trees you have, especially in the eastern part of Tennessee, that says moisture, moisture, moisture. So if you have a rubble trench, that's for drainage, I'm thinking. So other than that, I don't know how to answer that, but a rubble trench is nice to drain water away from the home. Okay, next question.
Okay, this is a good question.
Okay. I am so close to, can't read that.
Starting my foundation and getting cold feet.
Okay.
The contractor I want to hire to oversee the build wants the whole job and hasn't gotten back to me with pricing. Should I stop waiting and move on my own?
Move on your own. Don't be afraid. If you've got a contract and you like that foundation person, and I'd like to know more. If you want a consult, call me and I can look at some of the bids you have, walk you through it. We can look at the plans and get you, once you have that foundation done, I got that done. It's kind of like open heart surgery. I got it done. Now I just got to rehab and I'm going to get better. It's like that. And so once you get the framing done and then you're over that hump, then you get, here's what I found. I'm going to be really, really straight up with you as a builder. Most people hire a builder because of that. They're afraid of the dirt work. They're afraid of the foundation work, and they're afraid of the framing. They're afraid of the roof. They're afraid of those 4 big items right there. They can kind of squirm around electrical, HVAC, plumbing. They can kind of like watch it happen because if there's a mistake, that can easily be fixed. The other ones are much harder to fix. That's why they hire a general contractor. I have found in my career that I've taken on clients and then they didn't tell me, but they hired me with the intent to fire me later on during the course of the build because they just wanted me for the scary stuff. The last time that happened, the client says, Keith, we'd like to let you go and we can take it from here. And most people, when they see flooring and painting and miscellaneous finish work, they feel confident to take it from there. So the last time a client did that to me, I says, you know, something would have been nice if you told me that in advance and I would have worked something out for you, but I have money on the table. And so I'm going to write up an agreement. And if you're good, you'll pay me and I'll release you from the contract. And so just be straight up with them and tell them that you want to take it over at a certain time because you're going to want to take it over. Trust me. If you're scared about the foundation, but you're not scared about painting, and you're not scared about flooring install and cabinet, and you can kind of work with guys on that, you're not going to want that guy around. I'm just being straight up because you'll be on the job enough that by the time the finish work happens, you will be confident to manage that. So all you have to do is get over the fear of the foundation and dirt work. If you get people, and I wouldn't be picking the cheapest guy out there on the block. Get a bid that you like. Get someone who's a lot of experience, and even if they're more, that's fine. Feel confident in that because you're going to save money on the GC end. You're going to save money by not hiring a GC. And if you want some consult during that couple-week time, just schedule time with me, and we'll get you over the hump. So there you go. Give you a big boost.
Okay, let's see. Sorry about this. This is Garrett Kaysen again. Any suggestions on house plans when talking with architects? Have a floor plan we found online. Wondering if you have ideas, things you like to add?
Yeah, if you're an owner builder, I wouldn't be very complicated on the build. I'd stay as close to a single dimensional design as you possibly can, like a rectangle, not a circle. Nobody likes to build a circle. It's not fun to build. So you see the difference in the two. Rectangles easy to frame, easy to do all those types of things. If you start putting in 12-foot vaulted ceilings in the front entrance, that would be that'd be a different story. So keep it as simple as you possibly can. And again, if you want any counsel, just reach out to me through the platform at howtobuildyourownhome.com. And I've sat with clients and we have had some really, really good conference calls. And I've caught some red flags. Most of the biggest issues is having no HVAC, and other big issues is not really understanding space utilization. Stuff like that, roofing. Like, you wouldn't believe the difference between a gable roof and a hip roof, and the savings that could be sometimes, and the headache that can solve. And sometimes that gets to be a plus. Sometimes it's not a plus. And so capturing all that is in putting porches on homes when there's not a porch. That really opens up the home to be an invitation to the community. My wife and I could talk forever on what really brings value in a home.
And resell.
So please, if you want a consult, reach out to us. We'd love to do that. It's been invaluable for a lot of students. I've done probably close to 100 consults over the past several years. And all of them just were really, really good experiences for them. So okay, next question.
Brady has a good point.
There we go.
I bought plans online before. They usually have a small garage, so I like to make that bigger. Everybody loves a bigger garage. It's a good thing. And sometimes I remove unnecessary architectural details that add a lot of cost. Yeah.
Yep. He's pretty smart. He's been through the process. He knows what he's talking about. You can see, you can look at plans and right away know you're going to run into a problem. So that tells you something. And a lot of plans haven't been through the ringer. The plans we have for sale on our website at How to Build Your Own Home, they've been through the ringer. They've been built, and you can actually go to the YouTube's videos of those plans that were built and watch the process. There's not another detailed, transparent plan situation out there. Hopefully we'll get more plans out there for you, but check some of those that are online at our website. We're going to hopefully add some more.
All right. See, Manning.
We pre-approved for a loan. We'll hopefully be digging in August. What should I know about winter time builds? Where are you building? So let us know where you're building. But August is not a bad time, no matter where you are, except in the northeastern part of the United States, up there by Rhode Island and Maine. That changes really, really fast. The cold climates in the country are the worst in the Northeast. Okay. Your fall, it really is only a couple of days. Am I right or am I right? If you're in that part of the country, it changes fast. As you move out west, our summers are longer and our falls are a little longer depending on altitude. And then as you get into Western Washington, higher altitude, or even Alaska, again, that's a different story. So again, it's where you are, but given August, it's not too bad. It could be on the touch of late if I'm in the Northeast, but it's not so bad the rest of the part of the country.
Okay, let's see.
I'm a student on the course. This is based in Kingsley. I'm just need an experienced person to make sure the foundation is fine. I am good with others, so he is a consultant. I am the GC. Just use him as a consultant. And ask him, what will your fee be if I just use you as a consultant for the foundation only? Foundation, maybe framing, that's it. And then take it from there. All right.
And this was a follow-up. Giles County Rubble Trench follow-up. It's for foundation. We are in Southwest Tennessee, almost to Alabama. Do you remember that question? Do I need to go?
Yeah, I do. I'm just worried about how big the aggregate will be for the rubble trench. So I wouldn't want anything too big of an aggregate. I like to have a road base. And what the difference between a rubble trench and a road base is that the road base has smaller particulates, sand, grit, gravel, and larger aggregate, but a rubble trench is just rubble trench, and there's a lot of open gaps in there. Now, that's okay for keeping drainage away from the home, and a lot of builders may do that in that particular area. But again, if it's not properly compacted, I mean really thumped to heck, then you could have a possible settling in some spots, and I wouldn't want to have that. It wouldn't be bad if you had road base, maybe 12 inches down, and the last 6 inches of rubble for real. Rubble acts as a really solid foundation, only and if the foundation it's really compacted. I mean, locked in there, and it can't be round rubble. It's got to be a jagged rubble so that it can lock in a lot better. If it's just smooth, rounded river rock, you're cruising for a bruising eventually over time. So just keep that in mind. You don't want too much of an air gap, and I wouldn't want anything larger than 2-inch aggregate. So if it's about like that big, 2-inch aggregate, that's not bad to compact. But if it gets to be bigger, up to 3, 4 inches, about 5 inches, that's not easily compactable. And you want to get some stuff around that, some sand and grit to compact on that in a better way. So good question. Garnet caisson 2x6 studs for whole house or just exterior and in your vented bathrooms. So if I have a bathroom wall right here, I'm going to want to, or there's a toilet vent coming right up there. That vent is 3 inches in diameter, and it can reach up to 4 inches in diameter based upon the number of bathrooms or other code requirements. Now imagine a 2x4 wall, and you're taking a 3-inch conduit or pipe through that, and the stud is only 3.5 inches wide. So that means they have to drill that just perfectly, and it only leaves a 1/4 inch of stud on both sides. Okay, versus almost an inch plus on both sides. That's why I do 2x6 on those vented areas, especially in your dryer area, your HVAC and dryer, or your for your washer and dryer. And so I'm going to vent that out. I don't want to vent it out through a 2x4 wall. I want to vent it out through a 2x6 wall. And sometimes if I have a combination of things like that and condensate lines and other venting that's through there, I'll go as high as a 2x8 wall. So on your plans, this is why I don't like to buy plans online, because architects never think about stuff like that. On my architect, he knows, I'll call Lonnie, and he knows all my bathroom venting, all my other venting, and even venting for a hood in your kitchen. All of that goes into a 2x6 or even a 2x8 wall. And he solves that problem right there at the design phase. Every plan you get online, you don't see them. Exterior 2x6 and all those vented areas where you've got venting coming up. And just look where the sink is. Look where the toilet is. The venting is going to come up through the back side of those, and that's where you put your 2x6 framing. Okay? Good question. Very good question.
Okay, we're going to go back to C. Manning about the proof of their loan, digging. What should I know about winter timetables? They're in Ogden, Utah.
Okay. Real quick on that, also on your electric panel, that should be 2x6. It gives you all that room to run all that power. So we are approved for our loan. We'll hopefully be digging in August. What should I know about wintertime builds?
And he's in Ogden. Yep.
Utah. Okay. You're going to want to break ground in Ogden, but do it the first part of Ogden. That gives you August, September to get that foundation done. And then it gives you October, a good month, plus the half part of November to get your framing done. And you should get it dry in, meaning the roof covered and protected before Thanksgiving. If you're not covered up before Thanksgiving, you could get pushed into December. You never know what the weather is going to do up there in Ogden. You're on the eastern side of the slope. If you're up there in Brigham City, it's a different story. So you're slightly lower elevation. You're next to the Great Salt Lake, which keeps it a little bit warmer than the higher altitude. So you're at a good situation right there, but just keep in mind, you want to try to get it dry in before Thanksgiving. If you do, guess what? even if bad weather comes and you get a foot of snow on the roof, it's only sitting on the drying part. But I wouldn't use tar or synthetic. I would do a full ice and water shield on the complete roof, and you can let that sit through the entire winter, do all your guts mechanical, even get all your drywall, all your insulation done. In the event that you can't get back on the roof to get that roof done, which might be an asphalt or whatever roof you're doing up there. But yeah, just make sure you hit your deadline. You're going to push it up against the winter, but given the fact that you can break ground in August, just keep in mind you don't want to go too far past Thanksgiving without a drying. Okay.
And you don't want to do your drywall without putting your roofing product on top.
Yep. However, I've done it. It depends on how well you seal it. That's it. We did it with a full ice and water shield, so everything was completely protected. Then you can do it.
If somebody's doing a tile roof, you want to have that weight on the roof before you do your drywall.
Right, but I don't do tile roofs unless I absolutely have
to. Some people do, and in Ogden, you probably get too much snow. You probably don't do tile. But for those others that are listening, you got to make sure that your tile is on your roof before your drywall.
He's probably going to do an asphalt shingle, and here's the weight difference. Asphalt shingle is about 340 pounds per 10 by 10 square. A tile roof is about 840 pounds per square, and aluminum roof is 40 pounds per square. That tells you the difference. This is why I like aluminum, because it gives me that flexibility. But if you're putting something heavier on there, even architectural tiles that are double layered, they can be an extra 40, 80 pounds heavier still. So that changes. How much weight you put on the roof is a factor. So my wife is right. Get that on there before you do drywall. We're going to do a video on that in the next week or so. Hi, Keith. When replacing the baffles in my attic, how far up should I take them? Just the 4 feet they come in, or add another one? Eastern Panhandle of Wyoming. Is that Wyoming? No, or Western Virginia?
West Virginia.
Really good question. I've never heard anybody ask that question. I don't like to do it too low. So you're going to have 18 to 24 inches of insulation in that attic. Okay. Those baffles are going to go all the way down to the eave, way down here, and they're going to vent air all the way to the underside of that roof, all the way to the top. Sometimes I found that 4 feet barely gets up to the top of that insulation. So what happens here is high winds can sometimes come in and blow that insulation around. I like to take that baffle 2 baffle lengths, which would be about 8 feet, and it takes it up high. That way you're ventilating it, and you're keeping the underside of the roof cooler because you're ventilating it all the way closer to the pitch of the roof. And if I had my druthers, I'd take it all the way, but you want to vent out some of the heat in the attic. So I like to get past the insulation a good couple of feet, and especially in colder climates where you're going to have a little more insulation up, or even hotter climates. So it's not a problem. And I don't do it on every bay. I do it every other bay. That way I can take it up higher and longer, and I'm venting all the way from the eave all the way up. But make sure if you're in a high fire risk, you put a screen underneath. If you have a traditional vent, there's a fire rated screen, and it's typically stainless steel or galvanized. And then it stops embers from getting up underneath that eaves. You might want to research a little bit about that, but I don't think you are in West Virginia. You might be. West Virginia might have fewer wooded areas and fire risk than the eastern part of Virginia, so you can check that out. But if you have a fire hazard there, if you're on our website, How to Build Your Own Home, there's a free link. Go there, and it gives you how to build a fire rated home. So check it out. It's on our website, How to Build Your Own Home. It's free. Click on it and check it out. Okay. I am also worried that I won't be able to brick the house before winter. I am in Ontario, Canada. Can the house stay wrapped till spring 2027 if I start in August, September? Yes, you can. But you're going to want a little permeable, a little permanent house wrap. You don't want it put on just with staples if you have high wind. This sounds weird, but I use thumb taps, or the thumb tabs that they use to put the sheeting on the roof. I actually use that to put on a house wrap that I might need on the house to get me through a winter. That way, when high winds come through, it's not going to flap around and tear over and tear apart. You can also use a tape product, put it up, thumb taps, and then tape it so it's really nice and secure, so you're not going to have any wind or air or rain or moisture get in behind and kind of do damage to the substrate framing structure. But yeah, if you do it right, it should last fine. You're right, though. Putting up brick in freezing temperatures is hard because that brick and the mortar can freeze. So, good question. Doug in Utah, tell me about pushing window frame out when you add 2-inch of exterior insulation. A 2-inch to 3-inch frame around the window to push it out. I don't do that. So if this here, good example, if this is insulation, and that's 2 inches, close to 2 inches, I flash the windows. So you can talk with an aluminum installer. They can bend the flashing. And so basically it's flashing that's the same color as the window. You can get flashing that's black and white and aluminum. I've done straight up aluminum on clients. Just make sure you have a piece of this there. You have a piece of insulation there. You put it up against the window, and this is going to stick past the window. But now he knows how far out the flashing has to come. And I take that flashing and I bend it back about a 1/2 inch. And that bent back part is bent towards the flashing. Let me do it this way so it doesn't confuse anyone. Okay. Let's say this is a piece of metal flashing, and this is the insulation. I'm going to put that on my home. Okay. And the window comes right to where my fingers are. So I'm going to see that insulation. So I'm going to take this flashing, I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to put it just like, what's that? I'm going to put it just like that. See that? So the flashing is covering the insulation, and it bends back just a little bit. So I hope that makes sense. Now you don't see the insulation, and that goes up against the window. So all you see is that colored flashing. And that's the way you can order windows with the extra deep windows, and they can extend the frame structure out. But that's kind of a lot more costly, but you can find the price on that. If you have a person locally who can bend metal to work with that, fine. If not, find out what the cost is to get extensions and tell them how much you want the window extended out, and they solve the problem. It's either going to be one of those two things. Most windows handle 1 inch of insulation or 1 inch of polyiso foam for stucco. So most windows, in fact, all windows with a flashing on them, they will handle the added filler up to 1 inch. After that, then you either need to flash or you need to get an extension on the window. Okay. Good question. We'll take one more question here. Run it at a time. Oh my goodness. House is a rectangle, vaulted ceiling and living area and dining room. Same room they are in with the kitchen. Are there ways to save on vaulted ceiling? I'm just worried about the insulation on that. I don't know what kind of trusses you're going to use. If you're going to use like a scissor truss, sometimes a scissor truss, again, in cold climates, comes down a scissor truss comes down really narrow like that. It's just like scissors. I don't have some scissors on me, but if you take scissors and open them up, the truss is really thick at the top, which is great. You can pack insulation in it, and then it comes down and it gets really, really narrow, almost to within just a few inches. And you don't have much insulation factor on those ends. So if you'd use a better truss system than a scissor truss, and there's all kinds like a standard truss or what have you, that will stop that from happening. So you want to make sure you get proper insulation in your trusses for that. And that allows you to have a vaulted ceiling that's properly insulated. You wouldn't believe how many homes are poorly built that are multi-million-dollar homes, and they want the big vaulted ceilings, and they use the wrong truss system, and there's no insulation in there, and the home is super, super inefficient. So again, in the course, I have a download in the framing section on trusses. All right. Look at the images on the trusses and it will tell you which, and it gives you a description of those that are best and some that you just don't want to use at all. So if you're in the course, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay?
And I just want to add, because somebody did make a good point about this one, because I'm not a lender, and back to the VA construction loan, do some research for sure, because it's higher construction loan rate, and that rate does not come down when you make a permanent loan like a traditional construction loan. So do some research to just double check on your options. So thanks whoever gave that information. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Oh, Brady says, back to the trusses, use cathedral truss with energy hill for insulation. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. We have one more question if you want to do it. I know we're over.
One more question.
Because Garrett Kaysen, he's new, and we're so glad you're here. Also, you mentioned hip versus gable roofs. Would love to hear your opinion on that.
I'm just answering a question. Okay, say it again. Also, you mentioned hip versus gable roofs. Would love to hear your opinion on that. Yeah, let me do. I'm going to come up and do a video on that. If just research hipped roof, and you'll see that it cuts down and there's no gable end, and that changes the dynamics of a lot of things that most people never consider. First of all, if you're in a high wind area, it's great. Cuts down on wind against the home. It cuts down on your exterior wall. I'll be doing a video on the real cost to build a home. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the hip roof versus a gable roof. Just keep this one thing in mind. A gable end roof requires scaffolding to get up to the second level just to install all that stuff on the outside. Whereas a hip roof doesn't. It's all the 9 or 10 foot height. And then it's just the roofer. I like doing more roof, less exterior wall. And most people don't know that that's a bigger savings, cost savings, labor, materials, and otherwise. So we'll talk a little bit about this on the real cost to build a home. Well, I did a video like this like 6 years ago. We're going to redo the video and give it a lot of amp. So look for that to come out in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Glad you came.
Okay. You guys take care.